on you, you'd never forget it. Who are these? My boy.
Listen! We want as many men as possible! Come on! Harry!
We found him.
No!
Stop
Here, Max Stewart? No, not me, boss.
Hey, you! You Max Stewart?
What are you doing hiding there?
I'm not hiding.
Get him! Get easy, black bungle.
I went down to the beach. I saw this little girl. I was pretty full then. She was in the water, playing.
I got them.
Put some sand out the back. This is the fella that murdered that little girl. I want you to tell us whether his footprints are the same as the ones we showed you near the cave. Well? Look, we know he's not one of your mob. This Abbo's from out of town. Come on!
That's him.
Where's my bloody will?
The will.
I told you I'd be here to get it. Now where is it? I've been in here 3 times to get it. You've lost it again, haven't you?
Haven't lost it.
Hello, O'Sullivan and Devaney. No, he's a bit busy at the moment. Can I take a message? I'm his partner.
This is my wife's Christmas present.
The will.
What better way to show your wife you love her?
Indeed, Mr. King, if I were your wife, I'd want that will signed as soon as possible.
I should have known. You got to pay good money to get a good lawyer.
You've won the lottery.
Oh, Jesus.
Dave, your brilliance doesn't extend to your paperwork. I told you before, let me deal with the fiddly stuff.
So what is it? Car thieves? Neighbour dispute?
Black fellow accused of raping and killing a 9-year-old white girl.
Didn't read about that.
Didn't happen here in Adelaide. Happened in Ceduna. That's the last town before the West Australian border.
That's great. This is a copy of your confession. Are these your words?
Suppose so. I can read and write.
You can't read or write. Did they read it back to you? And you signed it?
They told me to sign them. So I signed them.
But you say you're innocent. Did you have any representation? Was anyone with you?
No. Only 6 feet, fella.
6 policemen. It's been calculated that the murder happened between 6 and 12 on a Saturday night. Do you understand that? Now, do you have any witnesses for that time?
Witnesses?
Witnesses, the people who saw you on Saturday night.
Been drinking. Couple of blokes along on the beach.
So you were drinking with them all night between 6 and 12?
No, I didn't stop. At 9 o'clock.
Look, Max, this is very important. Do you have any witnesses for the time between 9 and 12 Saturday night?
No. I've been in here. Policeman didn't lock me up for being drunk.
Between 9 and 12? Well, Max, if you were in here, you couldn't possibly have killed her. Now, Dr. Thompson, you said in your report that after examining the body of the victim, you estimate she was killed between 6 and 12 Saturday night.
No, she was killed between noon and 6 p.m.
That's not what you said in this report.
After I spoke to the police pathologist in Melbourne, I decided to re-examine the body. And I found that one of the wounds had maggots in it.
And
Blowflies don't strike after sunset.
don't you think it rather incompetent not to have noticed this before?
Mr. O'Sullivan.
Did you know my client was in jail between 9 and 12 on the Saturday night when you made your first examination?
No.
But you were aware of that before you changed your mind?
Yes, I was. But hearing that he was in jail and the revision of my original data had nothing to do with one another.
Oh, I'm sure.
Mr. O'Sullivan, Dr. Thompson is an expert in forensic medicine.
Expert? Is he going to change the times of the murder again to next week?
I can remember when city lawyers had much better manners than you. All that Dr. Thompson has done is to have had the honesty to change her original findings when she re-examined the body.
But that honesty has given my client and myself no time to talk about his whereabouts from noon till 6.
If this hearing goes to trial, you will have the time.
Now, Max, we have to account for the hours between 2 and 4 o'clock. You got a taxi from the general store with that boy, Alan Moyer. It's 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Then you go to the fun fair, drop off Moyer and go to Tevenard to have a drink.
Why didn't you go for a drink to the Sejuna Hotel when it's closer?
Sejuna Hotel don't like black fellas.
They don't like black fellas drinking there.
Yeah.
So you tell the taxi driver to pick you up in half an hour's time. You have a drink at the Tevenard Hotel. The taxi driver doesn't turn up, so you have to walk back to the fun fair.
Yeah.
So you walked past the place where Mary Hatton was killed.
Yeah. And I never seen anything.
You seen nothing?
Yeah.
So you were back at the fun fair by 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
How'd you know it was 2 o'clock?
Billy got proud. What a prize for your girl.
I'm gonna start at 2 o'clock. I get back there before start.
Max, why did you sign the confession that you killed the little girl?
I don't know.
God, he drank a lot that day.
It's a half class for most of them. It's a way of life.
Now, we were back at the fun fair by 2 o'clock. And the prosecution now says she was murdered between 2:30 and 4. He has an alibi. Maybe the owners of the fun fair can vouch for him.
The Keysmans disappeared.
How do you mean?
We're not talking a 3-ring circus. It's a pathetic little fun fair. It's vanished into thin air. Some people think they're in Queensland, others say the Northern Territory. Police can't find them.
Don't want to find them. We should find them. We should track them down.
We haven't got the money or the time. Who's to say they corroborate Stuart's alibi? Let's change our plea.
To what?
At least if we plead diminished responsibility, he won't hang. He was drunk. He didn't know what he was doing.
People saw him at the fun fair at the time of the murder.
Chamberlain will have witnesses to say the opposite. No one can agree on the times. Forget it. It's a dead end.
You think he did it?
That's beside the point. We have no defense.
Why didn't you take any casts of the footprints on the beach?
They weren't defined enough.
So really, you'd no evidence against my client before the interrogation began?
I suppose not.
It was Constable Whitrod who typed out what was said.
Yes.
Word for word.
Yes.
Max Stewart dictated every part of that confession without any prompting, just like that.
Well, once Sergeant Turner told him the black trackers would recognize his tracks, he knew we had him cold.
Tracks that nobody took a cast of, or even photographed. Trackers who were told he was guilty before they'd even looked at his footprints.
Your Honor, this kind of rhetoric is no substitute for actual statements.
Mr. O'Sullivan, Mr. Chamberlain is right, as you jolly well know.
2 hours seems an incredibly short time to get a confession out of a man who doesn't speak very good English. What did you have to do? Beat it out of him?
Your Honor, we seem to have progressed now from rather clumsy rhetorical questions to serious allegations against a police officer.
This is not a rhetorical question, Your Honor. This is one I feel needs to be answered.
Constable Jones, would you answer Mr. O'Sullivan's question?
Of course we didn't beat it out of him.
No. I suppose the 6 of you sat around politely asking him if he'd like to confess.
Mr. O'Sullivan, are you asking a question or being sarcastic for effect?
What I'm saying is quite simple, Your Honor. The police beat the confession out of my client.
Your Honor, if my learned friend is going to continue to allege that the defendant was assaulted while in police custody, it is incumbent on him to call witnesses. These are serious charges and I request an adjournment.
We'll adjourn for today and resume tomorrow morning at the same time. You two gentlemen can join me in my chambers at 9 o'clock.
What the hell was that about?
Did you see the way he looked at me when I asked that question? They beat the confession out of Max, I know it.
Max has told us no such thing.
Now, Max, I want you to listen very carefully. Did the police beat the confession out of you? Did they beat the confession out of you, Max?
Yeah,
Why didn't you tell us before?
I'm a black fella. You gonna believe me?
No, we believe you. No, we believe you, Max. What did they do?
You put the hand around my throat?
They tried to choke you.
Yeah.
What else?
They took me clothes.
You were naked.
They took me clothes and cut me hair with a razor blade.
Just wait a minute. I'm just trying to follow this, Max. Where did the razor blade come from?
In my pocket.
Why do you have razor blades in your pocket?
They're not mine. Fella Allen, he borrowed my coat. He been leaving me.
Let me see. What happened then?
They cut my hair. They was laughing.
Why did they cut your hair with the razor blade?
They said they wanted big evidence.
What happened next?
They put that razor blade on my throat. And they threatened to skin me alive if I didn't tell them what they wanted me to say.
You don't believe that story, do you?
The judge will have to tell the jury that Stuart's guilt stands or falls in the confession alone, because there's nothing else to convict him. Any question about it, he'll walk.
The jury's going to believe the confession is true.
You know how they got it out of him.
Dave, that defense rests on Max's version of what happened. We have no one to support his story.
Look, this is how I think it went. The murder happened on Saturday. The police are at a loss on Sunday till they get the black trackers down to the scene. Now, they say the footprints are those of an Aborigine from out of town. Police are on a high. Max fits the bill, doesn't belong to the place. They pile in a couple of cars and head for Tevenard a couple of miles away. The police think Max is hiding. All he's done is go for a leak, but they don't care. They're certain they've got their man.
What are you doing hiding there? What have we got here? Jeez. Sharp. Man could hurt himself if he wasn't careful.
They're so sure they have the right man. They want that confession as soon as possible.
You ever been skinned alive?
Oh, boss.
You got hair like a fucking gollywog. I need a hair sample. Now, Max, I want you to tell us what you know.
I've been working in Frampé. You never seen no little girl.
Max, I really don't have the time. What you're telling me is bullshit.
No, boss. Oh.
You're going to see, Max. Used to be a boxer, didn't you? Look what the fucking piss has done to you.
Now, I want you to tell me the truth, Max.
What you ask me to say?
How you killed the girl.
You never seen a little girl.
Crikey, Walker, don't do him in right now. I want him to speak.
You never killed that little girl, boss.
Look, you've been giving us a run around for an hour, and I bet you get away with far more than I should have. Jonesy.
No, boss! No, boss! No!
If Max wasn't scared before, he was now. He had a real fear that if he didn't tell them what he wanted to hear, they'd kill him.
The great thing about you being black, Max, it's very hard to see bruises. It's just as it's very hard to see the scratch marks where that little girl struggled to save her life. Let's have a confession, Max. Let's start from the beginning.
I, Rupert Max Stewart, aged 27 years, labourer of Alice Springs, having been warned by Detective Sergeant Turner that I need not make this statement, do so voluntarily without fear.
Max realised he would have to tell them what they wanted.
Nature, state the following.
Well, Max, start.
I've been born.
We're not fucking interested in the story of your life. You came to Sejuna on Friday, the 19th of December, 1958, didn't you?
I've been to Sejuna.
I came to Sejuna. Now pay fucking attention, Max.
Yes, boss. I came to Sejuna on Friday, 19th of December, 1958.
Perfect. Now, who did you work for?
Giesman. Unfair.
And so for the next hour, afraid for his life, Max tells them exactly what they want to hear.
You understand that we'll be arguing that 6 policemen beat a confession out of Max?
Of course I do.
You understand that in this town, the cops are second only to God. And you know who God is? A judge. They won't listen to you.
Helen.
You saw the public gallery. Nobody cares about him.
But we do.
White with one.
Thank you, John.
I apologise, Your Honour.
Ah, Mr. O'Sullivan, tea or coffee?
Black's fine.
Tea or coffee?
Tea, whatever.
Do you really intend to proceed with this defense? If I were in your position, I'd be entering a plea of guilty.
If he pleads guilty in this state, he's going to hang. Also, the prosecution have no evidence except for the confession. And I believe the police made that up.
What do you mean the police made it up?
I find it incredible to believe that 2 policemen made up the story, let alone 6.
My client says the police beat the confession out of him.
Roderick?
I spoke to them last night. They all deny it.
Of course they do.
Do you seriously wish to alienate the jury?
It's my defense.
Are you trying to get run out of town?
Look, the jury is going to see 6 policemen, one at a time, take that stand and deny what you are suggesting, and they will be believed.
Shouldn't we leave that up to the jury?
Mr. O'Sullivan, you're on a hiding to nothing.
No, I think it's my client that get the hiding.
Well, obviously there's no more to be said. See you in court.
Fine. Why were there 6 policemen present during the interrogation when it's normal procedure to have only 2?
They were all interested in the case,
And why did you ask my client to undress?
so we could search him.
So he was totally naked during the interrogation?
Yes.
Is that normal police practice to question people when they're naked? Or is it only when you're questioning Aborigines?
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Sullivan.
When you searched my client, did you find some razor blades in his pocket?
Yes. I put them on the table with everything else.
And when you first examined the body of the victim, you found a hair in each hand?
Yes. I collected the hairs because I thought it might be a vital clue.
You thought it might be a possible lead. Sufficiently so as to take a tuft of hair from my client's head. And you used the razor blades to do so.
Yes.
That's strange. There's no mention of hairs or razor blades in any part of your report. What was the results of the forensic analysis on the hair?
It was inconclusive.
Inconclusive. It showed that they were black. Did you at any time threaten him with that blade?
I only cut his hair.
Did you threaten him?
Your Honor, Detective Sergeant Turner has already answered the question.
Mr. O'Sullivan.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The court will take a 30-minute recess.
All stand.
Every single cop is going to make life hard for us now.
Chamberlain's going to crucify Max in the stand.
It's if we let him give evidence from the witness box. Could make an unsworn statement from the dog. But then the jury might think he's too scared to give evidence.
It's a risk we're going to have to take. Problem is he won't be able to read it. So, Max, tell us in your own words what you'd like to say.
You don't read right. Never been in school. I want someone to read them for me.
Your Honor, I object.
My client is illiterate. He's unable to read his unsworn statement. I requested someone read it out for him.
Your Honor, the statement which the defendant wishes to be read on his behalf contains charges of criminal assault, not to mention the implication of conspiracy to commit perjury by 6 police officers. Now, to allow such charges to be made in this way does not permit them to be tested by cross-examination.
This is a crucial part of my client's defense. He wants the jury to hear his account of what happened that day. If not, he's not been given a fair trial.
Mr. O'Sullivan, your client is getting a fair trial, which is why I cannot accede to his request to have someone else read his statement to the jury.
Just someone to read it out for him.
Your Honor has already ruled most properly on the subject. Besides, making an unsworn statement is tantamount to the defendant saying that he's guilty.
Your Honor, I must protest.
Mr. Chamberlain, you've been a prosecutor long enough to know that what you said is wrong. I wouldn't have thought a man of your experience would resort to such a cheap trick.
Your Honor.
Please disregard Mr. Chamberlain's comments. Mr. Stewart, you will need to tell the court what happened.
I did not kill the little girl. I did not kill her. Please believe me. Choke me.
What did he say?
He didn't kill the girl. The police choked him. And he gave them the confession that they wanted to hear.
Your Honor, these are not the defendant's words. They're
The
Mr.
police assaulted
O'Sullivan's.
my client.
It really is
Threatened to
inexcusable
skin him
to
alive
allow
with a
this
blade.
kind of thing.
And he said yes to anything.
Rubbish!
Utter rubbish.
Gentlemen of the jury, you are unanimously agreed on your verdict?
We are
Do you find the accused guilty or not guilty?
guilty.
And that is the verdict of you all?
Yes.
Rupert Maxwell Stewart, you have been found guilty of the crime of murder of Mary Olive Hatton. It is my painful duty to order that you be taken from this place to the place from whence you came, and there to be hanged by the neck until you are dead. May God have mercy on your soul.
Aren't you angry, Max? About what they've done?
I always thought that being outcast would make my life easier. You know, Mr. O'Sullivan, I got some white fella blood in my veins. But white fellas don't accept me. Some of my own people, they don't like me neither. That's why I joined Jimmy Sharman boxing group. I was a good boxer, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Is that so?
I'm traveling everywhere with that mob. I never lose a fight. Always get all the girls. I see cities for the first time. I saw jungles up north. You know, I see an elephant in the zoo one time. Oh, it was a mean bugger. Yeah. You know what else I see, Mr. O'Sullivan? No. The sea. I'm from desert. I had my mouth wide open. Everywhere. Water, water, water.
Why didn't you stick to the boxing, Max?
Mr. Jarman say I got it in me to be a champ.
Why didn't you?
Who's Mr. O'Sullivan? Drink in a box I don't mix. But I like traveling. That's why I end up with a Geisman fun fair. Just a half-caste drunk. So this where I end up, eh? Some bloke lucky.
How'd you mean, Max?
Some bloke lucky. Bloke who done this.
Very well done, Roderick.
Oh, thank you, Charles.
He's an appalling piece of work.
Yeah. They'll hang for it.
I meant O'Sullivan.
I'm grateful to you for keeping me out of jail after that car crash.
You're very lucky, Mr. Carskins. You were drunk after all. You're meant to be away this weekend. Remember Carskins?
We're going to appeal to the High Court.
On what grounds?
The police beat the confession out of him.
The jury ruled they didn't. The High Court isn't going to hear you just because you disagree with the verdict.
He was wrong in not allowing me to read out Max's unsworn statement.
The High Court will agree with Justice Reed. Dave, it stops here.
Helen, he's going to hang. There must be some grounds for appeal.
There's nothing we can do.
Why are you so bloody negative?
Why don't you bloody listen to reason?
No, you two are sounding more and more like a married couple.
What are you doing here?
Well, I wouldn't mind you handling another case for me.
Not in a moment.
I know you're a cop hater, but I'm bringing you money.
I do not hate the police.
Well, you certainly had a very funny attitude towards them when you were defending that abo.
Get to the point.
The police forced me to resign after I had the accident. I've got a fair few financial problems at the moment. I've got a lot of outgoings and not much coming in. So I want you two to take my ex-wife to court and have the alimony payments halved.
Maybe some other firm can handle this.
Look, I'm not the bad guy here. She's got a boyfriend round there all the time.
We'll take it on.
Thank you. At least your partner's got some sense. And by the way, that abo hasn't got a hope in hell.
Karskins. Those policemen that arrested Max. Do you know them?
You know what's wrong with your defence, O'Sullivan? Those cops probably beat the confession out of that nigger only because they knew he did it.
Sorry, Max. The boss has to know what you want for your last meal. Steak, maybe? Everybody likes steak. Now, I know you're not a Catholic, Max, but this is the best, religious person we could come up with.
Well, Max, he didn't kill that girl, you know.
Well, that's great, Father Dixon, but it won't stop him from hanging.
And I'm not a naive man, Mr. O'Sullivan. It takes a lot to convince me about the truth of things. See, I speak Aranda. That's Max's first language. As a priest, I spent a lot of time with his people. And I spoke with Max today in the Aranda dialect. And he told me he was innocent.
Father, it means nothing in court. You could say he's innocent in 500 languages and it would still mean nothing.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. I don't doubt what you say. But as I said, I've spent a lot of my life working with Aborigines, and I've met a lot of men like Max whose second language is English. And what I'm trying to tell you is that there's no way that somebody like Max could have made that confession.
Why not?
Well, you see, when an Aranda man speaks English, he mixes up his Aranda sentence construction with his English sentence construction, so that more often than not, their English sounds like a real pea soup.
What are you saying exactly, Father?
Well, what I'm saying is that the actual words in that statement aren't Stuart's.
Are you an expert in linguistics, Father?
Oh, no, I'm not an expert. I'm a bit of an amateur, really.
I'm afraid no one's interested in the opinion of an amateur.
But I do know the world's expert on Aranda, and he'll confirm what I say. At least I think so.
You think so?
Unfortunately, he couldn't be here for the trial. He only got back from Europe a couple of days ago.
Where is he now?
He's here, right here in Adelaide.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
There is a word in German, Mr. O'Sullivan, and it's called Scheiß. Shit. For example, an Aboriginal certainly wouldn't say such phrases as the fanfare was situated at the Sejuna Oval, or words like unconscious. These words and sentences are absolutely implausible. This confession is shit.
So you'll be spending the night with the prisoner?
He wants me to. He would have preferred to have been confirmed, but it's too late now.
Now listen, Max. I know we don't have much time left. This is Dr. Strelo. He studied and lived with your people. I don't want to mess you around, Max. I don't want you to mess around with me. Did you have sex with the little girl?
Unda mala aku karana andunaka.
Arangwa.
Did you kill her?
Unda rana irelunaka tuka.
Arangwa.
All right. All right, that's good. That's good. Max, I believe you. I do. Now listen to me. You're leaving the Tevenard Hotel. You're going towards the fun fair in Sejuna. Now, do you understand? Now, you tell me the truth.
Ayanga laga, Tevenard to. Mana andana. Ero tukkala. Oila paila. 4 pound. Bema. Look awarna. Right.
Elena, Andera, Etukala, Andera, Ereka Yepera, Enga.
Funfair?
Apala.
He's changed his testimony.
Max claims he paid £4 to an Aboriginal waitress at the Tavernar Hotel to have sex with him before he went back to the funfair.
Max, you told us you went for a drink. Why didn't you tell us this before?
Zane.
What?
If he just had sex with the waitress at the hotel, then why is he going to go and rape the child 30 minutes later? As a final point of appeal, please find attached to this application for postponement the execution of Max Stewart, an affidavit from Professor Strelo regarding the authenticity of Stewart's confession. This in itself is grounds for appeal to the High Court.
Hello, Norma. It's Helen Devaney. You're working late. We have something important to drop off to Justice Reed. I see. He's away for the weekend. Norma, you couldn't let me have that address, could you? I'm afraid it's urgent.
No, Max. This is it. Come on, mate.
I'm scared, Father.
Of course you are. Hey, you're a strong fella. The kind of people you come from. Strong people. They know how to die.
If this be my last walk, let me do it right.
What is it, Dawson?
Sullivan's going to the High Court.
What for?